Hi, and welcome to Exceptional History. Thanksgiving is a national holiday that most people know is rooted in the Pilgrims. The simple version of the story is that the Pilgrims were escaping religious persecution in England. After a roundabout trip from England to Holland to England, they reached America, where they fell in with some Indians who taught them the ropes of survival. Then they all had a big Thanksgiving dinner. But over the years, some controversy has grown over some key aspects of this story. Today on Exceptional History, we are going to take on 3 of the Thanksgiving story's most controversial questions. One of the claims about the Pilgrims is that they came to America for economic reasons. Did they? Yes and no. It's a bit complicated. You see, the Pilgrims, also known as separatists at the time, fled religious oppression in England for Holland's looser religious regulations. But William Bradford explains in his book of Plymouth Plantation that the most abundant jobs in Holland were sea-related jobs. These were trades that the separatists didn't have. Therefore, they had to get harder and more low-paying jobs. So, as the next generation comes along, they see that they are being held back financially and move into seafaring or military trades. Often these trades were associated with disreputable conduct since you move rapidly from one location to another and whatever you do in between, well, that's nobody's business if you know what I mean. Add to this that the separatists were not impressed with the religious culture in Holland or England. In 1600s England, religion was political and mandatory, which meant that the churches were regulated and political corruption existed among the clergy. There were actually clergymen who opened their churches up as taverns or to hold cockfights. On the other side of the spectrum, religion in Holland was casual. For these reasons, the separatists believed that to remain in Holland would demoralize the next generation, but they didn't want to go back to England because they had just left there to escape religious oppression. They were sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place. They viewed neither culture as good for their children, so their next best idea was for them to create their own culture. And where better to do that than in an unmolded land such as America? Though it was considered an extremely dangerous endeavor, they would have the potential to make a better future for themselves than they would in Holland, while maintaining the religious freedoms they did not have in England. And it was this journey to find a place that could fulfill their religious needs that caused later historians to dub them Pilgrims. Did the Pilgrims and Indians get along? Well, to understand the answer to this question, let's put some context in here. The Indians had not had a good relationship with white men before the Pilgrims. They associated them with genocidal diseases and slavers. So if you are counting the people before the Pilgrims, yes, the Indians did not have a great relationship with white men, and if they were to rely on their experience from that, there really was no reason why they shouldn't have killed the Pilgrims once they came ashore. Why didn't they? Well, some historians theorize that it was because of the women. No self-respecting Indian would bring his wives with him if he was going to war, as that would expose his wives to danger, and really the same rule went for the Englishmen. So when the Indians saw the Pilgrim women, they knew that the Pilgrims had not come prepared for war and were different from other white men in this way. This, among other goodwill exchanges, is what led to amiable relationships for over 50 years. So where do the stories of the poor Indian Pilgrim relationships come from? Where all evils come from. Politics. What essentially happened was a new generation of leaders came in, and it would take a long time to explain what exactly happened, but let's just say that a lot of egos and bad decisions on both sides started jostling together and exploded into King Philip's War. However, it would be really unfair to blame the original Pilgrims for this conflict, since this would be like blaming you for something your grandchildren did. But from what we know of the original Pilgrims and Indians, we can safely say they got along pretty well. Did the Pilgrims celebrate the first American Thanksgiving? Strictly, no. While researching the very first Thanksgiving, I found that the actual first Thanksgiving was everything from ancient Indian rituals to a 1598 Spanish Thanksgiving Day in Texas. We are not excluding those as Thanksgiving days, but we would like to explain what sets apart the United States Thanksgiving Day. The thing that sets the American Thanksgiving Day apart was the point behind it. It first became a federal holiday during a bloody civil war that had divided families and peoples. Sarah Hale, America's first female editor and author of the famous rhyme, "Mary Had a Little Lamb," had worked for 17 years to get Thanksgiving turned into a federal holiday. As the war progressed, the need for some sort of positive reunification for the hurt and broken Americans was a blatant need, and Sarah played off of this to get Abraham Lincoln's aid in creating a holiday focused around families gathering for a time of thankfulness. It would be a holiday set aside for healing and uniting, just as the Pilgrims had done with the Native Americans. In her letter to Lincoln, Sarah wrote, "And would it not be fitting and patriotic for him, Abraham Lincoln, to appeal to the governors of all the states, inviting and commending them to unite in issuing proclamations for the last Thursday in November as the day of Thanksgiving for the people of each state. Thus, by the noble example and action of the President of the United States, the permanency and unity of our great American festival of Thanksgiving would be forever secured." At a time when unity was sorely lacking in America, Lincoln took the idea and gave a proclamation of Thanksgiving that, despite the horrible and unstable situation the United States was in, gave thanks for the areas of abundance that had still been maintained. Lincoln finished the proclamation off with, "They are the gracious gifts of the Most High God, who, while dealing with us in anger for our sins, hath nevertheless remembered mercy. It has seemed to me fit and proper that they should be solemnly, reverently, and gratefully acknowledged as with one heart and one voice by the whole American people. I do therefore invite my fellow citizens in every part of the United States, and also those who are at sea and those who are sojourning in foreign lands, to set apart and observe the last Thursday of November next as a day of thanksgiving and praise to our beneficent Father who dwelleth in the heavens. Also with humble penitence for our national perseverance and disobedience, commend to his tender care all those who have become widows, orphans, and mourners or sufferers in the lamentable civil strife in which we are unavoidably engaged, and fervently implore the interposition of the Almighty hand to heal the wounds of the nation and to restore it as soon as may be consistent with the divine purposes to the full enjoyment of peace, harmony, tranquility, and union." So maybe the first Thanksgiving wasn't strictly the first, but it was different in that it was created as a holiday that rotated around bringing together families, the hurting, and fellow countrymen for a time of healing and thankfulness for God's blessings. And with that, happy Thanksgiving! God bless! I hope you liked that video. If you did, you know the drill. Please like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and leave us a comment to let us know if you liked this, if you didn't like it, what you thought about it, and we will see you in our next video.